Throughout the month of November, many students of the Calgary Board of Education organized many walkouts to stand up for the lack of response and the lack of action the Calgary Board of Education has taken towards sexual assault allegations. Sexual assault and violence can happen to anywhere, to anyone, and is one of the most pressing human rights issues affecting Canadians and the world today. The movement of the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender Violence is an event created by activists in the inaugural Women's Global Leadership Institute in 1991 and continues to be coordinated each year by the Center of Women's Global Leadership. It allows victims to speak about their experiences and raise awareness. It kicks off on November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and it carries on until December 10th, International Human Rights Day. Gender-based violence and assault not only affect the victim, but it affects us all as a society. Gender-based violence is one of the many obstacles women, non-binary persons, and even men face. It creates emotional, physical, and even mental issues for the victim, and many of our Calgary residents have faced these situations. A Central Memorial High School student being one of them. Let's hear her story.
So this was April 2021. Yeah. So back in September, I started smoking weed because that's sort of the culture of Central. And in that time, I met this guy, I'll call him John, and he was a mutual friend of mine who sold weed. And so we ended up getting pretty close because I bought from him pretty frequently. And whenever I'd buy from him, it was normally in the girls' bathrooms at school. I don't know, it was sort of weird. And so then during the lockdown in April, my mental health got really, really bad. Not being able to get weed once a week. And so I started contacting him and I was like, hey, could I buy from you sometime? And originally he was like, yeah, I can totally deliver for you. And I was like, okay, that's super cool. But then every single time it would come to him having to deliver it to me, he would be too high on something to be able to come. So it just kind of got to the point where I couldn't wait anymore. So the first time I went to his house, I took the bus there from, it was really, really far. It was a 2-hour-long bus ride there. And then the buses didn't run by the time I got there. So then I had to walk all the way home. The first time I went there, it wasn't super weird. I was comfortable with him. It was just me and him, and he wasn't drinking or anything, so it was fine. And so then the next time I needed to buy weed, I thought, oh yeah, this will be fine. I already did this before. He was very professional about it, and I know him, so it's gonna be okay. And so I rode my bike there, and he texted me and he was like, me and some of my friends are drinking right now. Is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Because he comes to school drunk all the time, and it's just that's just the way he is, and it's just fine. And so then I walk into his house, and the first thing he says is, you have to take a shot before you get to take your weed and leave. And I was like, okay, cool. Because, that's just friends being friends. And so then I walk into the room, and just the vibe is so weird. There are red lights on, and there's one guy just plastered on the bed, cannot move. And this other guy snapping a girl or something, I don't even know. And then John. And so then I go and sit down on his bed, and I don't really know what to say. They're just kind of saying stuff, and then they start talking about how I should start making out with the guy that's plastered on the bed, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that. That makes me really uncomfortable. And then they were like, oh, well, and then John was like, oh, well, then you should make out with this guy, the other guy that was in the room. We'll call him Brett. And I didn't have an excuse to say no. Like, didn't really know how to say no, so I was like, okay. And so then, like, we started making out. It was really weird, and I don't really remember what happened very much because, like, I took a shot and I have such a low alcohol tolerance, I don't drink. And he knew that. And in between what happened, it was just blurry. I remember I kept getting touched by different people and I didn't want it to happen, but I didn't know how to say, can you, like, just stop? Like, just stop touching me. Like, I don't want this. And, like, there were multiple times where, like, Brett pinned me down to the bed and, like, I couldn't move and I didn't know how to. And it was just like, ugh, you know? And then I remember John was like, you know, we should go out to smoke. Like, I think it would be super fun if we went out to smoke. And my little addict brain was like, oh yeah, that does sound good. You wanna know what? I might be, like, sort of getting sexually assaulted right now, but, like, if I'm high, maybe I can find this okay. And it's free weed. And so I kind of just stuck it out, but he wasn't getting out the weed. He wasn't getting anything out. And I was like, oh, what is going on? So I walked over to his table where he had the alcohol to go take another shot because I was like, I can't do this. I need to not be sober. And as I'm pouring it, he comes up behind me and he, like, grabs onto my waist and starts to, like, feel all up and down my body. And then he sticks his fingers inside me. And I just stand there, like, completely paralyzed in shock, like, what? And then he says, look at her. She's such a fucking slut. She doesn't even fucking care. And I just was like, I could remember, like, hearing my head just, like, screaming, like, I do care. Like, I want you to stop. Like, stop touching me. Like, and so I just looked at him and I didn't know what to do. So I just gave him a kiss. And then I took my shot and moved away as fast as I could. And just after that, I don't remember anything except for Brett walking me to the door because John couldn't even move. He had gotten so drunk. And I biked home. And initially, I hadn't realized that I had been assaulted.
Many schools in Calgary this year have participated in organized walkouts in a way of protesting, as well as showing their support for victims of sexual assault allegations that have been brought up in the past couple years. One of the first schools to participate was Central Memorial High School. Their walkout was organized by the ambitious student Jade Sather.
There was one time when I was younger, I was about 10, and it was just a random time. I was at the beach, and then throughout when I was growing up, there was an older man in my family, a family friend, and it was kind of went on for quite a few years, probably from the age of about 6 all the way up until maybe about 10 or 11, 12, somewhere in there. Well, having known about sexual assault and being very aware of, like, what consent was from a very young age, and having people totally step all over my boundaries when I was a kid, and hearing other people talk to me about what's happened to them and their stories and that kind of thing, and knowing that I didn't want other people to feel like how I've felt and how it's impacted me. I didn't want other people to go through that. And so knowing all of that that has happened to me and knowing that it's happened to other people, like tons of other people, I don't want other people to have to go through that. And so if I can have a voice and try and change things and help get other people together to change things so it's different for other people, then I want to do that. And talking to other people around my school or going to other schools in Calgary and hearing some of what's happened at their schools, like during school hours, and how unsafe they feel, and even sometimes how unsafe I felt, knowing that that's not okay and there needs to be something done to change that. So I think that's kind of generally what it was for me. For finding out actually about Western's walkout, I was just on social media and I saw some people posting about how Western was doing a walkout. And I started looking more into it and I found the girls that organized it. And I ended up reaching out to them and talking to some of my close friends and saying, hey, I've heard some other people talk about how they've been having the same issues as why Western is doing this walkout. I think we should do one to get change for us and our school, but also like stand with Western and help. And a lot of my friends were like, yeah, I think this is necessary. Let's do it. And so I talked to the girls that organized it, and they shared a document with me, just kind of some points, general guidelines, what the point of the walkout was. And I looked over it, made some adjustments so it fit our school more, added some of my own things. And I started some group chats. I posted a lot on my story, that kind of thing, just to make sure other people knew about it, that it was happening. So it wasn't the day of the walkout and there was like 3 kids going out there. But it spread really quickly because there was a lot of other people that felt the same way, that there was things that needed to change, and there still are. And yeah, it was actually really amazing to see how many people wanted to help, even if they hadn't experienced all of the shitty stuff. So I made a whole bunch of signs as well, and I passed them out the day of the walkout. And I ended up talking to my principal beforehand and the vice principals, telling them that there was going to be a walkout. So it wasn't, and they already said they heard some stuff, but they weren't sure more about like details about it. And I think it was a good idea to tell them, because then it wasn't just all these kids leaving and they were just kind of blindsided by it. But it would be good to give them some warning. So I did that, I think, the day before. I talked to my teacher that I was in the class of, and I told other people if they were comfortable to tell their teacher they would be walking out, if they wanted to tell them, just because some teachers didn't know, some at all, which I thought was kind of surprising. And I have to say, it felt, I was very anxious when I first got up to get up and actually be the first kid in my class getting up. And then I stood up and I saw a couple other people standing up too. And as I was walking, I saw other kids coming out of classrooms in the hallway. And it was so amazing to see all these other people that were so ready to do something. Change isn't something that happens like in one day. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. And even if already like it's been a while since the walkouts and there's not a whole lot that a lot of people have seen change, but there are smaller changes happening and more is being done. And so it's not that there's nothing being done. There is stuff being done. I know I'm still working with some people and some groups and that kind of thing, and my school. I know other people are too. And so there is stuff being done to make school a safer place and to educate people. And that even this is a really scary time. And I would say reach out to someone if you need, because this is a lot. It is a lot. It's a heavy subject, but it's also a great conversation starter to get more people aware of what's happening and what needs to be done. And so, yeah, just look for support and give support to those who need it. Just for everyone, like in general, that's taking a part in this and who's had to deal with sexual assault or harassment or whatever that, like anything that kind of falls in there, that it's not just you dealing with this, and it's not just you that wants change. There's a lot of us that want change, and you have to remember, you can't take everything on because it doesn't all fall on your shoulders, and there's a lot of us that want to help too. So taking on that much, you have to remember to take care of yourself as well.
It is okay to be scared, and you are not alone. Let's break the cycle of violence and assault. Many forms of abuse is against the law, and no one should be placed in any of those situations. It is okay to ask for help.